Stacy, Executive Sports Editor at the Salem News, and welcome to Bandied About, the Salem News / Gloucester Times Sports Podcast. Here alongside Assistant Sports Editor Matt Williams, Gloucester Times Sports Editor Nick Giannino. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. Great.
Excellent. Caught up in the hoopla of NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, Red Sox drama, and more importantly, what's going on here locally. We just wrapped up the 2024-2025 sports season. I don't think we've done a podcast in a few weeks, so got a lot to catch up on here. Um, so let's start with what just wrapped up. We had three state champions in tennis. Pretty good. Nick, you were at MIT. I saw you there Sunday morning. You caught two of the finals. I caught one. Why don't you talk about? Yeah, actually, you caught two.
Yeah,
So
I was there for the end of St. John's Prep, but I'll let you take that one, obviously.
yeah, no, go right ahead. Tell us what you saw, what you knew, and what came out of it for you.
Well, first off, just really cool to have both Manchester Essex boys and girls teams playing in the finals. Cape Ann League has just proven to be super competitive in the Division 4 bracket, and we had all Cal finals on both the boys and girls for D4. And start with the boys. Manchester won their second straight state championship. Head coach Robbie Billsbury's been there for 26, 27 years and had never won a title before until last year and finally got over the hump. They beat Linfield in the championship last year and they got their rematch against them in Sunday's state championship at MIT and were able to pull out a 3-2 win and repeat as champions. I think they finished 22-1, I believe was their final record. Their only loss being to St. John's Prep, which the head coach had scheduled for their last regular season match, and they were a little overmatched by that opponent. Obviously, a Division One program and a really good one at that. Phil will talk about them winning in a second, but yeah, just an awesome season for Manchester. They had a few changes in the lineup this year, having graduated some key guys, and they really benefited from having a transfer sophomore Alex Monteresi come in and step into that second single spot. And he had a ton of big wins this year. He had a big win against Linfield on Sunday to get him started. And then they also took home third singles with Charlie Langendorf, who I believe went undefeated this season. He might have had one loss against the Prep, but other than that, undefeated. And it came down to the two doubles matches. Linfield had taken the first singles and then they ended up winning first doubles as well. So it came down to the second doubles match, and Shay Engelhart and Charlie Rubens, who had been together all year, pulled out a three-set victory after dropping the second set. They came back and rallied to win the third set. So that was really cool. You know, it was a big crowd watching that final match to see who was going to come out on top. And like I said, after they lost that second set, it really could have gone either way, but they regrouped and
I was
got
actually kind of
back
surprised
for
by the crowds that were there. I didn't really know what to expect, but there was there was a decent crowd that was pretty vociferous
there was, yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah, it was packed. Obviously a beautiful day out there, and they don't have a ton of seating. They had some bleachers, and fortunately, the bleachers were set up right in front of the final match there of the second doubles that sealed it. So that was really cool.
But
But
people were
yeah,
lining
that's
like all the courts, with all five matches going on at once. There were people watching everyone individually and on
yeah,
both sides. So it was pretty
yeah, it
cool.
was crowded. What do they have? 12 courts there. It's a good, perfect venue for the
10 or
state
12,
championship.
yeah.
12, I think. And they were moving things right along, with D1, D2, D3, D4. So a lot of matches to be played throughout the day. But I thought it went pretty smoothly. And anytime one of the matches wrapped up, they'd send out someone else, and teams were moving down a court to make the transition easier. But yeah, awesome stuff for Manchester to get that second straight title. I think every player in their lineup this year was a senior outside of Alex, who I just talked about at second singles, a sophomore. So they're going to have an entirely new look team next season, but nonetheless, great stuff for them. And then the girls, obviously just ran into a buzzsaw in Hamilton Wenham. Hamilton Wenham was dominant all season long. Four straight state championships for them now. Naomi Provost kind of being the linchpin, as head coach Joe Marr referred to her as. She's been with the program all 4 years and has kind of steadily moved up the lineup, took over that first single
Program
spot
record for
this
wins too. I
season.
think she finished like I want to say it was like 83-2 with a
Yeah,
that was a
82 and
record, just
2,
crazy.
Joe said. And he also made it clear that those two losses came in third set tiebreakers where the match was already decided, so they played a 10-point tiebreaker, and those
Right.
are the two losses. So really impressive career for her. I believe she's not playing. He did tell me where she was going to school. I can't remember. Do you remember where she's going?
Uh,
It's a good school. I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
I wanted to say somewhere down south, but I that could be wrong. But I don't think she's going to play.
She's not playing. They're trying to convince her to go out for the team, so we'll see what happens. But she was fantastic, won in straight sets on Sunday, and Manchester was without their top player, Aurora Lenahan, who had an injury and wasn't able to play, so they had to bump up their other singles players a spot, and they put in a senior at third singles, and they were just overmatched. Put up a good fight. They ended up losing 5-0, and Hamilton got their fourth straight. But great season for Manchester too. They finished the year, you know, right around 500. I think they were 11-8 going into the tournament, but they had won four straight matches, and then they won four more in the playoffs to get to that state title match and make it an all-Cal finals. And I think at full strength it would have been closer. Obviously, they split two matches with Hamilton Wenham during the regular season, and but Hamilton Wenham was very, very determined and came out to play. And yeah, shout out to them. Four straight. You don't see that every day. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
I was there at the match before yours, the Division One boys state final. St. John's Prep wins its second straight. They beat Lexington 3-1 with one match not finished. And that was like 2.5 hours to determine a winner. They had won at first doubles with Luke Prokopis, Boris Kuzminov. First singles, Ruda Malaya won in straight sets, so they were up 2-0. Lexington wins at third singles to make it 2-1. Second doubles, really battling. Lost the first set, won the second set. They go to a third set. And great work by the team of Kieran DeBuy-Weniger and Wade Evitts to close out their Lexington foes, finally give the Prep the win. Second straight unbeaten season. As we said, second straight state title. 44 wins in a row, six state titles now for head coach Mark Metropolis, and every one of them have been back-to-back years. I think it was like 94, 95, 2000, 2001, and now 24, 25. So really good season for the Eagles on the hard court there.
And did I see too, Phil, that Reuter, the singles guy that you were talking about, was with Lexington prior, right, and transferred
Hmm.
over to the prep? So that's a pretty cool story right there.
Well, and what's interesting is the prep only has three seniors, and their number one singles player from last year was injured and didn't play at all this year, John DeAngelis.
Right.
And I asked Mark Metropolis, the head coach, who would have been the number one guy, John or Ruta? He's like, I don't know, razor thin margin. So both of those guys are presumably going to be healthy and back next year. 1, 2. You have to think that's a pretty good shot right there for the prep to three-peat. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's super impressive there. We had one other state team champion, St. John's Prep Lacrosse. Um, Not a huge surprise, their fifth straight. But the way it was done after blowing through the first three rounds and then taking care of business against Lincoln Sudbury in the semifinals, they played BC High for the fourth time in 5 years. In the final, they fall down 3-0, 4 minutes in. They score the next six goals to go up by three at halftime. BC High battles back, battles back. They get two in the last 69 seconds to tie it, send it to overtime before the prep wins the face-off in overtime. Will Crawford gets the draw. They scoop the ground ball. They set up in the offensive zone. They get a shot on that save. They get another shot that's blocked that comes right out to Madden McGowan. He throws a laser pass over to Luke Kelly, captain for Marblehead, who's going to the University of Michigan. He rifles the ball home. State championship won, fifth in a row for St. John's Prep. Um, Very different season than other seasons for these guys, where they would just overwhelm teams in the past with offensive depth. They certainly had depth. I mean, they had eight different guys score the eight different goals on Saturday, but this team was built on defense. I think they gave up a grand total of, off the top of my head, I think it was 19 goals in five postseason games, which is a remarkable number. Just wave after wave of whether it was close D, the D middies, um, the face-off guys, just tremendous amount of defensive depth, shutting down teams. And that was really, I think, the story of the season. Plus, goalie Mateus Duplessis had a fantastic game in the final, season high 16 saves, probably a career high if I went to look back on it. Really came up big when the Eagles needed him most. So, another state title for St. John's in lacrosse. Elsewhere, Willie, we had some really good showings at in track, both at the divisional levels, the statewide levels, the all-state levels. Can you delve into that a little bit?
Well, Peabody won the state title, so I mean that's another team state title to add to the list there because that
First
is
one
a
since what, in like 31 years, was it?
50 years,
50.
1975
Okay.
state champ. So big deal there.
Oh, I'm thinking it
Really.
was the first team title since what, football?
Yeah, first
That's
first
what it was.
boys first team title in a boys sport since 1993 for Peabody High.
When
So
Peabody beat St. John's in the Super Bowl.
correct. That's
Yes. Okay.
correct.
Okay.
So not something that happens every day, and certainly I think for those guys, the senior core group of the team. I mean, this is a team that lost, finished second at the Division II state meet in the winter by 1 point, right? Finished second at the state relays this spring by I think 5 points. So they really have been very close, and to kind of break through on their very last meet and get that. I mean, very, very meaningful for them. And to do it without Evan Bedard, who was, a shoe-in for a good 20 points. I mean, they won by a lot and they would have won by even more. Evan's a Division I athlete going to Stonehill, won two indoor championships, I believe, in the long jump and triple jump and got hurt and wasn't able to compete. So, you think like that's kind of the end of your state title hopes, right? And for them to rally and kind of get enough points to win it without him and kind of win it for him. I mean, truly, truly remarkable. And we'd be remiss not to mention the season that Nate Assa of Marblehead has had, not just in the spring, but the whole school year. I mean, this kid goes back to back New England championships, wins the 2 mile indoors, the 3200 outdoors, which, I guess the track down in Connecticut they were using for New England is a metric track. So, the 3200 is probably, a couple of feet less than 2 miles, right? I mean, it's basically a 2 mile, but I mean, that's crazy. Like for a kid to win two New England championships, really, he's dominated at the local level, the state level, and the regional level now. And like if it wasn't for Alex Jackson, I mean, who's dominating at the national level, this kid would be MVP of the NEC. I mean, that just shows you like it's one of those things. These things don't happen all the time. They run different events, so I'm hesitant to say it's like bird and magic a little bit. But I mean, you don't like how often do you have multiple New England champions in the same conference? I mean, this poor kid has won two New England titles and he's never been MVP of his own conference.
I
So
was just going to ask you, like, when was the last time we had a sport with two athletes of that caliber at the same time? That's like, and I'm dating myself here, but that's like Jeff Juden and Jeff Allison pitching at the same time.
I mean,
Um,
kind of, yeah. I would say like Allison and Antonelli.
yeah, good comparison.
Just to stick with baseball, like maybe Pat Rotolo and Brandon Bingle, at the same time. Maybe a little bit less so, like Jack Leathers and Bobby Dean, maybe a little bit less so, but that kind of thing. Like, it's really kind
Or
of
it'd be like if we had
remarkable.
a Chris Kreider and a Colin Blackwell playing at the same time.
I remember having Haley Dowd and Caitlin Hardy,
Yeah,
both
that's a good
both
one.
being in the NEC at the same time, trying to choose who the MVP was going to be that year. So pretty remarkable, and I believe they're all going to New Balance Nationals at the UPenn in Pennsylvania and around Philadelphia, which begins on Thursday. I know Alex skipped New England's. He's looking for some national glory there, and Alessandro Forgione will be throwing for Peabody the javelin as well. And I assume that Nate will be running there too. Now he's going to Purdue, which is pretty remarkable, a Big Ten school, high level track program there. So
Is
that's pretty cool.
Camilla Perrin moving on too from Ipswich?
So that I don't know. I'm not really super familiar with the pole vault. Certainly she could. I mean, especially at any of these different the nationals have so many different qualification groups, right? You got your championship and then you're kind of emerging elite or, whatever they call it at the New Balance. It's kind of hard to keep it straight. So I'm not sure. Hamilton Wenham might be sending a few kids. Georgia Wilson certainly would be like a contender for something like that. And, the Danvers boys, Conklin, Rooney, if they went and kind of maybe tried to run a distance medley or something like that. We got so much talent. I mean, so many Division One guys. I mean, both the Danvers guys are Division 1 guys going to Lowell, and it just goes on and on and on.
Certainly an embarrassment of riches locally for fans of track and field, and it's great to see them showcase themselves at the state, New England, and in some cases national level here.
I mean, it's crazy. It's really hard to win a team championship in track. We just haven't had that
Yeah,
many of them. Cross country, we've had a lot. We've had a
yeah.
fair number. But as far as the meets, indoor and outdoor, and especially now because the state is not scoring the meet of champions, right? You only get one shot at this, and I know St. John's even doesn't win it all that often. They win the state relays. They've won that 4 or 5 years in a row, but the actual state championship meet. I mean, it's been a while since even St. John's has won, so it's a pretty interesting, pretty unique accomplishment, I would say, and hopefully, some of these teams with the extra divisions can maybe crack through. I mean, I know Marblehead and Masco were both very close last year, and probably will always be in the mix there in Division 3.
I want to move on to softball for a minute, and this is going to be two parts. Nick, I want you to talk about Gloucester because they had certainly had a very good season
Yeah.
on the diamond. But Willie, I also wanted to ask you, and Nick, I'll start with you, but Willie, just maybe ruminate a little bit while he's talking. Why have our teams locally here in our coverage area seem to have had difficulty um, this season moving on? I mean, we had Marblehead last year, we had Peabody in the past, but was this just one of those blip years where we weren't going to get a team that went far, or what was it? It just seemed like it was I don't want to use the word disappointing, but it was a year in which teams did not advance in the way that they had hoped. So, Nick, why don't you talk about the Fishermen first, and then we'll go to Willie.
Yeah, fantastic season for Gloucester. I think they only dropped 4 games in the regular season and won the NEC crown, and they put a nice little run together in the Division 3 playoffs. But they did run into number one, yeah, top seed Dighton Rehoboth, the defending champs in the Elite Eight. I was out at that game, and it was a battle. Went to extra innings. They ended up giving up a walk-off run in the eighth to lose 2-1, but just terrific season. They really gave themselves a shot in that game. I thought they were going to get it done, and just came up a little short. But this is a team that's going to return a ton of their talent next year. That includes their freshman ace pitcher, Abby Noble, who was just fantastic this season. Threw a couple no hitters. She had a no hitter going into the eighth inning against Dighton Rehoboth in that playoff game, which is just crazy. They had scored a run early on a sacrifice fly, I believe, after she walked a couple batters, and then she really settled in and pitched a great game to give her team a chance, but they just couldn't get that decisive run to get over the top. But like I said, just a remarkable year for them. I don't think going into the season they would have expected that, having some unknowns on the pitching on the mound. But Abby Noble really stepped up as a freshman, and she's going to be coming back obviously for 3 more years. So they're in great shape there, and they have some offense. Emma Cara Pachosa is one of the best hitters in the league. She'll be coming back next season. Olivia Madruga, nice sophomore catcher. She had a nice hoop season and carried that over to the spring on the softball diamond. So they got pieces, and I think they're going to be right back in the mix next year, especially if Noble takes another leap, which is hard to even imagine her pitching much better than she did this season. But maybe some command stuff here and there she could work on, and Yeah, she's terrific. They had a great run. I think Dighton ended up losing in the state championship, so
They did, yeah.
no shame to lose to them.
And Willie, part two of our question to you.
Well, I think a little bit of bad luck, right? I mean, I look at Beverly and, they had a pretty good season. They get a home game, and then in comes, luck of the draw, some team that has a pitcher that's going to Texas Tech that pitches every other game. So they
South
record,
Carolina, yeah, right.
sorry, South Carolina. Yeah,
Yeah,
close
right,
enough.
right.
But so it's like, all right, what are we supposed to do about that? It reminds me of Peabody last year, where it's like, Peabody got
The
in the
fee
second
and
round a team that went to the state finals that had no business being the seed they were because they forfeited a bunch of games. It's like, well, all right, Beverly probably should have played that team in the second round or the third round, and I mean that's the luck of the draw sometimes, right? You need to
yeah, an
be to win,
unfortunate
and
luck of the draw.
yeah, I mean, and then you look at Bishop Fenwick, a 24 seed that makes a round of 16, went 6 and
Yeah.
12, got in and wins a couple of games. So you got to give them some credit. I mean, I think I look at Marblehead and I think it just puts the run that they had last year in the proper perspective, right? How magical that was, how much has to go your way in order to make a Final Four. I mean, 16 and 4 and they were a 15, 16 seed and you're sitting here saying, well, they got one of the best pitchers in Eastern Mass. They're 16 and 4. Like, how are they not seeded higher? And then they lose, and it's like, well, I guess the seedings are right. That's what the MIA would tell us. Like, this is what happens. So,
But then,
um,
just to your point there, when we were talking about tennis, we didn't mention the Fenwick girls who had that run to the Final Four. I mean, none of
mhm.
us saw that coming.
Right, Ryan Danvers they
Yeah, and
almost,
Danvers, right? Danvers makes the
they had a
Final Eight.
really great game against Danvers there. So, and to the power rankings, like again, Hamilton won them. I mean, they've won the state title 4 years in a row. Were they the number one seed in any of those 4 years? I don't think they were. So it's
Maybe
like,
one, but yeah, not
what do
more than
we
that.
so it's like not perfect, but I just think softball wise, like it's tough. It's a lot like the baseball and the girls lacrosse, and really the boys lacrosse, with the exception of St. John's. The power teams are in the South, and if you play one of those teams in the first or second round, even if it's at home, you might be in trouble. And we've seen it play out, especially in divisions 1 and 2. And even a little bit in Division Three. I mean, Danvers, I thought would have a much better chance in the state tournament, and they really kind of took it on the chin. That was surprising to me because I think they're a pretty good team. We know they're very well coached. I mean, if there's any kind of softball Hall of Fame in the country, Mark Valou's got to be in it, right? So you know that they're very well coached. So they obviously were just kind of outgunned, right, in that game that they lost. So. I mean, that's, I guess that's the cookie crumbles. I mean, again, I think it played out pretty similarly in baseball and girls lacrosse. I think it fairly frequently plays out this way in boys basketball and girls basketball. The South Shore teams just kind of tend to have the number of some of the teams up here, and unless you've got a real generational team, a top 8 seed, and you get lucky, you might be in trouble, and again, like I think in some ways it makes you look back and even tip your cap even more so to Marblehead for what they were able to do a year ago. It kind of shows you like, wow, that was really hard what they did, and they ought to get a lot of credit for it and enjoy it.
I think, Willie, to your point there about the South just kind of having a stronghold in some of these sports, we could carry that over into girls lacrosse as well. Ipswich had been to the state final the last 2 years. I really thought they were headed on their way again after a great one-goal win over Pentucket in the semifinals. They run into the third seed, Norwell. Ipswich was the 2 seed. They run into the third seed, and Norwell just obliterated them. I mean, they couldn't do anything wrong, and poor Ipswich, just had one of those days where nothing went right. But I think there's some real truth to what you're saying there. Um, Same type thing. I think what you said about the softball applies to the girls lacrosse. Had some, Beverly lost a tough game out at AB by a single goal. I think that was for being a conference co-champion, tough draw to have to go out there and play your first round game. Um, Peabody had a great season. They were unable to win their first round game. Hamilton Wenham had a nice little run before they got um, bumped off in the quarterfinals. Swampscott had a good run until they ran into Hamilton Wenham in the round before that. Baseball wise, did anything jump out at you at all?
No, I mean, the same kind of thing. I mean, I think, I mean, same kind of thing. I will say I was absolutely shocked. Beverly had Winchester on the ropes and then kind of lost the game in the preliminary round. Peabody, who I don't think is anybody's idea of a state title contender, beat Winchester during the regular season. And then Winchester goes out and beats number one Taunton in the first round. Like, I don't know how that happened. I mean, that really kind of shocked me. But, other than that, I mean, I think pretty well chalk. I mean, these teams, most of them were around 500. Most of them either won a game or lost the second game. I mean, Hamilton Wenham kind of got a tough draw there with Winfield, and the final score they lost 17-3 in the final four, and doesn't really reflect the type of season that the Generals had. I mean, that was
No,
I think
because
they
they'd
gave
given up
up.
what, 2 runs in the first 3 games, I want to
Yeah, I
say.
mean they gave up more runs in that game, I think, than they did in the entire month of May. I mean, maybe they may have given up more runs in one inning of that game than they gave up in the entire month of May. I mean, they were such a good stingy, defensive team. I mean, that's I mean, during their winning streak, they had given up 3, 6, 15, 18, 20, 21, 22 runs the entire during their 11-game win streak,
Wow.
and they gave up 17 in one game. So I mean, that's just,
All right,
that's kind
so
of
here's a
crazy.
question where we talked about the Ipswich girls losing the state semifinal. We talked about Hamilton Wenham losing the state semifinal. You have a great season. You win your league title, you're a high seed, you roll through the first few rounds of the playoffs, and then when you do lose, it's not the state final, it's the game before, but you lose badly. How do you take that and say, you know what, one game doesn't define us. One bad day or one day where things just didn't go our way, or the baseball slash girls lacrosse gods, we're not in our favor that day. How do you push that out of the way and try to focus on, hey, you know what it boils down to? We had an excellent season with this group that we have right here.
I mean, I think it's nice that they do the banner. I think that helps.
No,
I
Final
mean,
Four banner, you're saying.
it's not as, because this used to happen a lot, right? The Eastern Mass title game, you might get, I mean, I remember Masco baseball was undefeated, 22-0 or something like that. They won the North. They went down to Plymouth South and got their hats handed to them, and it's like, well, we won the North. You get the trophy, you get to celebrate, everything after that is kind of a bonus, right? And so you get a similar feel with the Final Four banner. I mean, I feel like if you lose the game before that, that's where it really hurts, because you're not in that North final. You're not, when you used to lose the North final, they gave you a little runner-up trophy and you got a little ceremony or whatever. Now if you lose in the round of eight, you just kind of go home. Same as if you lost in the first round. So I think that losing in the quarterfinals is probably more challenging in terms of like bruised egos and kind of trying to feel good about yourself than maybe losing in the semis, if that makes sense. But
It does. I just feel like it's rarer now because of the power seeding. We see fewer of these blowouts in the semifinals and or finals. So I'm just
yeah, we
wondering.
do. I think that's accurate. I mean, maybe not so much in football, but I think in these sports that's probably accurate. We don't see the kind of games that we used to see. I mean, I remember when like the Swampscott girls basketball team won the
Oh yeah,
state title, right?
they
It
win by
was
35 points against,
yeah, like the semifinal against I think it was Archbishop Williams. I mean, that was the real state title game,
right.
right? The team from Western Mass that they
Then they
played,
beat Quahog
it
or
was an easy
Quahog
one
or
type of
somebody by
thing.
35 points, right?
Um,
I just don't want to see like, haven't seen both teams live, Hamilton and baseball, Ipswich uh girls lacrosse. Their season shouldn't be defined by that one game.
Well,
And,
it's hard to win. I mean, I say this all the time, and every time, especially when we talk about St. John's, and they make it look easy and whatever. But Hamilton Wenham does too, I guess. Masco Gymnastics,
yeah,
but it's really hard to win, right? And so, like, the hard thing is you knock at the door long enough, and you hope that one of these years you kick it down, right? I mean, I was talking to Reggie Maidman and Hamilton Wenham about that after the game. I mean, they've had three, he's been there about 15 years now. They've had three really special groups where they were pretty close, right? They won the North, I think, twice, or maybe went to the North final. They won it in 18, and then this year got to the Final Four. It's like these schools, these smaller schools that don't have a group like this every single year, it's like you really want to coach them up. And the year when you really have that group and they're all seniors, right? You just, if you get so close enough times, you hope that one of those times you can break through and actually win the thing, and that's why when you do break through and win the thing, it's like not just for yourself, it's for all those teams that came before you that got pretty close. I mean, Masco girls soccer, same thing, right? Like they were so close,
Yeah.
so many undefeated seasons, and then finally you just break through and finally win the thing, and I think like
Maybe not to
that's
compare pros in high school, but you can't help but thinking that when the Red Sox finally won in 2004, how many people were like, "Oh, I wish my grandfather was alive to see this." Or they did it for my sick, uncle or whatever. So many people had like familial connections to the team and they had watched it with a family member, so it felt um, like baptismal almost that like when it happened. You wonder at the state level, again, it's the same thing. Like the team 2 years ago was so close, but we finally won it this year. And those people are as part of this group, that kind of thing. And it goes back to your point that, yeah, it's really hard to win. It's hard to sustain winning. And if we kind of come full circle here, back to what we started at the beginning, where we had all of our tennis champions repeat and St. John's lacrosse repeat for the fifth time, that's super difficult to do. You don't just roll out the balls, let's say in tennis, and say, okay, go win your match and we'll put another, chit on the board here and another championship at the season's end. Like it takes a lot of work.
it does. Yeah, no, it's hard. It is. It's remarkable, and there's no shame in not doing it. I guess that's the only thing. Like if I mean, for a lot of these schools, you're sort of grading on a curve too, right? I mean, it's like, for some of these schools that haven't been in the tournament, it's like you get to the second or third round, and that's it's a pretty big accomplishment. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I think too, obviously, is a lot easier for the underclassmen to stomach it, knowing they can come back and get another crack at it. Obviously, the seniors leaving. I mean, that's tough, but I can think back to when I was in high school and never won a state championship, but had some nice runs in the playoffs, and you still remember those. You remember those seasons you had, and oh, we came so close to winning this one, and if we won that, we would have played at the Songa Center or the Garden or whatever. And I still think about those and reminisce on it with my friends. So I'm sure the seniors that are leaving after state semifinal loss or even quarterfinals, they're still going to be talking about that for years to come. I mean, it's still impressive. Obviously, you want to win the whole thing, but going out a couple rounds earlier and having a great season like that, no shame in that.
I mean, I think that's it too, is like to Nick's point, like they used to be like, oh, we made it to the North Final. Oh, we made it to Songus. There used to be places to go for goals. And
Yeah.
Right.
one of the things with the statewide tournament is that we are kind of missing that. Like nobody says like, oh, I made it to Walpole.
Yeah.
I'll remember that for the rest of my life. But
How was the venue filled for the lacrosse at Mass Maritime? Was that work out all right? I know it was a rainy day, right?
It was, but it was fine. I mean, it was not convenient for those of us that live, north of Boston, but I mean, the venue itself was great. Personally, I love it when they host it at Burlington. I think it's a terrific venue. I think Sean Hart, the AD there, and his crew do an outstanding job. And it's not so big in that you feel like there are empty seats. Like you can pack it there
Yeah.
and you can probably get 1,500 people there, and it's like an unbelievable atmosphere. Whereas at a college venue, it's not going to be that way. But as for the venue itself, it was fine. There was a turf field next to the actual playing field, so teams could warm up while the other game was going on and all.
Hmm.
Easy to get to. I mean, it's out of the way for us up here, but it's not hard to get to. It was fine, again, to Willie's point, it's not like, oh, we're going to the Garden, we're going to Fenway, we're going to
Right.
Songus, that kind of thing. But hey, you can't have it all, I guess.
Yeah.
no, I mean
And
that's maybe
before I
they have to
forget too,
build that
Dayton
soccer
Rehoboth won
stadium.
they won the Division III state championship in softball. So just had to correct myself there. And Gloucester had the closest game out of any team in the tournament against them. So that's something to
I mean, I'm dating myself, and Willie, you might remember this as a kid, not like long before you came to work here, but when Bishop Fenwick softball was winning 7 state titles in a row. They would play the North Finals at an out of the way place in Wilmington called April Field, April with an E at the end of it. It was kind of like down this windy road and it was bug infested and all. And, at the time that was like, oh, that was the Taj Mahal. If you were a North team, if you got to April Field, like that was pretty good. And then if you won, you went way out to Amherst or something to play the state final and you were happy to play. So, we have come a long way from that, where teams get to play in college and or pro venues, but hey, if it were up to us, everything would be within 20 minutes driving. It's not. What can we do? It goes how it goes. All right. So now that the spring is over and we are finished with the year as a whole, is there anything either one of you that really stands out to you about the school year 2024-25 when it comes to athletics? A trend, a team, an upset, just any prevailing thought? Like if I say the 2024-25 school year, Nick, what comes to your mind first?
Hmm. It's a tough one. Will, you got anything that comes right to your mind?
Um, I think basketball, kind of the
That
resurgence
was a
there,
fun,
the
fun
kind of
ride. Yeah.
that kind of magic run. Masco soccer certainly. The girls being nationally ranked. And then some of the track. I mean the Marblehead and Danvers, the Danvers head as it was, the distance guys, both winning cross country titles and then obviously everything Alex Jackson's done on the national level and geez, football wise, I don't really remember a whole heck of a lot. It wasn't like a great season on that front, but
First time, Willie, I don't think we went to a Super Bowl or a state hockey final in what, half dozen years or so?
yeah, a couple few, yep, couple few years for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Um,
because it's on fresh on my mind, and it just happened a couple days ago, and we already talked about it. But I thought Manchester winning a second straight tennis title was really cool, especially with a different group. And I just really like what Robbie does with that program, and the kids are all bought in. They're all together, and I think that was quite the accomplishment. And as a tennis player myself, fun watching them. So that was pretty cool. In terms of the winter and the fall, I mean, I didn't have any spectacular teams on the Cape Ann that won any state titles. Manchester football was fun to watch this year with Zach Hurd. He had, an all-time season for them, throwing the ball and running the ball. They made a nice little run in the Division 5 or 6 playoffs there. Gloucester football got back on the map a little bit, were relevant, won more games than they lost. But yeah, I think that tennis championship to cap things off and close out the season was pretty cool.
I think I would have to say, I mean, there was a crazy state tournament field hockey game I went to where Beverly had scored to win a shootout, and then the officials confer and say we should have played a second overtime before the shootout, so they had to go back and replay overtime after they had already won, and they scored in overtime. So that was kind of kooky.
Mm.
Another Beverly moment was a great Thanksgiving Day football game with Salem back and forth, back and forth. Rocco Ryan sets school records. Beverly, wins for the first time in a couple of years. A big upset win there, 37-35, I want to say it was. That was cool. Willie, you mentioned Masco basketball. That was a fun ride to watch them. St. John's Prep hockey making another long run in the state playoffs is always enjoyable to watch. The success over at Endicott. We don't get there a lot, unfortunately, because of our numbers uh, in terms of staff here. But they certainly, between football and hockey and the basketball and baseball, they certainly had a great season there. So a lot of really cool things this year. I mean, maybe it didn't result in the championships that we've become spoiled with so many teams winning them, and we certainly did have some. But I think the memories itself are all pretty cool, just to look back on and see certain things and all. Is there anything that we can take a super early look at ahead to next year? And I guess maybe I'm thinking the fall, that we can say like, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing this. Like you could say, uh, Chris Vargas, all this hoopla at St. John's Prep as a freshman quarterback, greatest thing since Otto Graham under center and da 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 da. Da. How will he do as a sophomore? Looking forward to seeing that. Uh, Willie, what's something you can think of for the fall here?
Oh, I don't know. Geez, off the top of my head, I mean, I think, what can Masco soccer do? Can they
Yeah,
defend the title, right? Without the Schneiders, can the Blossers really do the job? And, how long can that winning streak go? I mean, I think Beverly's like potentially a team to watch. I want to see what Danny Pierce can do. I mean, if they can develop some timing patterns and put in like a functional passing offense that's based on timing, I think they could be like a super dangerous team.
and
So
Masco too. I mean, Masco,
right, and then Masco brings back everybody, right? So I
yeah.
mean, that's a team with
And you
like
still have
Super
Marblehead, which is still ruling the roost. So I mean, how do you
yeah.
rule them out?
I mean, Masco's got Super Bowl aspirations. You got Gustafson, Weidman, Fabiano. I mean, that's obviously kind of yeah, number one there. I mean, I went to Beverly right away because that would be like kind of more of a surprise, and
Yeah.
they were just some,
Haven't
there
had
were
a
just
winning
so
season,
many
I don't think, in what it's been 2018, I want to say. Was that
there's
last
just so
winning
many
season?
flashes of brilliance with a lot of the tape I saw of Pierce. I mean, they kind of had Masco on the ropes like for a quarter and a half under the lights there the first night game there at 40 Field and really Peabody they kind of had on the ropes really probably should have won that game but didn't do enough offensively so I think like with a lot of their skills players back I mean Teddy Fisher I think they had to buy him three different baseball shirts. He grew so much during the season. I mean, that kid is enormous now. So like that's kind of a name that you can put in the back of your mind for a crystal ball column, like who could be a household name, right? I mean, he's enormous. He looks like he's ready to do some damage out there. So that was kind of the first thing that popped into my head. But you're absolutely right. Masco is like it's kind of like Gillette Stadium or bust for them.
Nick, what about down on Cape Ann? I mean, do you see anything popping out at you between Manchester, Rockport, and Gloucester off the top of your head?
Well, I'd love to see Gloucester keep climbing that ladder in football. They've had two respectable seasons in a row, and I think they got some pretty good talent coming back. I look at a guy like Jalen Severino, who missed a lot of time with a concussion. He was off to an awesome start, just has next level speed. I really am curious to see how he does. He is coming back, right? I think he's only a junior. Let me double check that.
But with the point
Yeah,
you're making,
2026. So he'll be back. But they got some other good pieces too, and I just think the culture there is slowly getting built back up. People in Gloucester really love the football, and it's nice to cover them when they're more relevant and winning some games. And I think they strung together a pretty good season with what they had this past fall, and hoping they continue to trend in the right direction. Manchester football, same thing. I mentioned Zach Hurd. He's coming back. He's probably going to be in the run for Cal Player of the Year under
yeah,
center
absolutely.
there, and they could in Division 5 or 6, whatever they are. I can't remember at the off the top of my head, but they can do some damage there at that level. Um, so that'll be fun. Yeah, the rest of it, the other fall sports, soccer and golf and field hockey, it's nothing really jumps out at me right now. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see who kind of shows up and what direction those teams go in. But yeah, I won't go too far ahead into the hoop season. I love my hoops, but we'll stick with the fall. That's a ways away.
All right, and we still have plenty to look back upon on the recently ended school year, I should say. In the Salem News, we'll be doing some of our favorite games that we covered. We'll look back with final columns and statistics for baseball, softball, boys and girls lacrosse. Um, so we haven't quite finished going over things yet. So you can look for that in the paper over the next week and a half or so. And then, of course, we'll all have our respective all-star teams for the spring season. So, and before we know it, we'll be into the summer. And that reminds me, so let's do, I didn't even mention this to you guys beforehand, but I thought of it while we were doing this. Let's do a blind ranking, and let's do for you guys things you like to do in the summer. A little bit slower in the summer. I mean, we still work, obviously. There's still things to do, whether it's Little League or golf or, Agganis games or whatever. But um, let's do some blind rankings before we sign off here. So these are 1 to 5, one being the most, five being the least, of things you enjoy doing in the summer. Okay. And let's start first with, good old summer barbecue.
I'll put it right in the middle at three. I love a good barbecue, but I have a feeling there's going to be some other things on the list that might top it.
What do you, what's a go-to for you at a barbecue?
Burgers and dogs, can't beat it.
Okay.
If you go to one and they're doing steak tips or something like that, that's great. That's a plus. Chicken kebabs with some nice peppers and onions. I can't go wrong with that.
Can't go wrong there.
But
No.
yeah, I like my burgers. Maybe some potato salad, watermelon.
Mayonnaise is garbage, so potato salad is out.
Not
But
a mayonnaise guy.
no, it's gross. Mayonnaise is disgusting.
I enjoy it.
No.
To each their own.
Willie, what about you?
But same thing. Yeah, three's good. I mean, not the best, not the worst. Just kind of right in the middle. I think that's about right.
All right, and I don't think you're super adventurous with the foods, but are you also a dog and hamburger guy? Maybe a
I mean, I would,
cold.
I would say the buffalo chicken dip. I mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
pretty much number one.
Okay, all right. Maybe a cold soda, a
Yeah,
root,
why not?
root beer, or sarsaparilla or something.
Sure.
Okay, the beach.
I love the beach. Put that at number two.
Okay, you gonna go to beach?
Well, the wife's got a little family cottage on the Sound in Connecticut, so I like going there. But around here, I grew up going to Salisbury and Seabrook Beach. But Cranes is nice in Ipswich, although they charge an arm and a leg for parking. Haven't really experienced much of the Gloucester beaches yet.
Long as you're not in cranes during greenhead season.
Yeah, yeah, that can be brutal.
Those are, yeah, you got to
Yeah,
wear one of
not
those
fun.
astronaut suits out there.
Right.
Willie,
I'll go two as well. Yeah, I mean, it's just you don't want it to be too hot. That's the only issue. You get the sunburn. That's the only. If it's too hot, too humid, that's the only thing that keeps it out of the number one slot there.
okay. Um, Going on vacation, like a little family vacation. Could be anywhere.
Yeah,
Could be, getting on a plane, going up to Maine, whatever.
yeah, I'll put that at number one. I mean, it's always nice to take some time off. We don't really get the chance to do so too often during the school season with all the sports going on.
Hmm.
So I'll put that there at number one. We'll wait and see what the other two are. But yeah, I used to go to Maine every summer with my family growing up. It was always a good time.
Okay.
And yeah.
Willie, what about you?
I'll throw it at five. I mean, we don't go anywhere. I don't like the hotels. It's just not really in the offings most of the time. Maybe nice to do a big trip, Disney World or something like that,
Yeah.
but most of the time we don't really, people in this house don't like sleeping outside their own beds most of the time.
Okay. All right. How about reading? Just relaxing and reading. Get a good book and, just delve into it.
That's at five for me. I don't read much. I write a lot. I mean, I read articles, I read magazines, not much of a novel reader. So that's an easy five for me. I probably would have put that at five regardless of what you have said so far.
Okay. Willie?
Probably should be. Better at it. I try. Becca's got me some sports books. I think I got a Giannis book here from Willie that I haven't touched. He's trying to push me into it too, but you know, just don't get around to it much.
Okay. Willie?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna be the last thing here. That's the tough one. Um,
I know you're a
but
reader, though.
yeah, but it's not really like a summer thing, right? I don't really read outside so much. as
No, but I think of it as like because it's a slower pace of life in the summer, there's more downtime to read. Although your situation may not, you may not have a lot of time, free time these days, but just reading for pleasure.
yeah, I could see that. You know what? I'll throw it at number four. I'll throw it at number four.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay. And you guys are going to laugh. Number one, I'm sorry, the last one here is doing nothing, just relaxing, doing nothing.
That's awesome. Love a good nothing day. I got to put it at 4 because that's the only one left, but that's a pretty good one.
Okay.
I like
Julie, where
that.
does that leave you?
Couple
That's one
naps on
for
the
you.
beach, maybe.
That's
Yeah, number
one for
one.
you.
Yep, that's fine with me. Yep, that's fine. We can just hang out, put the feet up, watch TV, whatever. That's
Yeah.
no problem.
All right.
Um,
I could have put golf, but Nick, obviously that would have been one for you, and that would have been about 16 for Willie. So it didn't seem to make much sense. I had trip with the boys, but again, that's kind of like vacation. It doesn't really count. All right. So Nick, you are vacation number one. You are beach number two, barbecue number three, reading number four, and doing nothing number five. Is that right?
I had reading number 5.
Reading five and
Nothing for
nothing
you.
number four. Okay. Willie, you're content to do nothing at the top of the list. A little beach trip will get you out of the house, but you don't have to sleep there. Number two, throw him a little barbecue dip, and he's good for a barbecue at three. Doing nothing. I'm sorry. Reading was what, four, we said? And going on vacation was
yeah, that's right.
five. So good lists. Good lists there. Um,
I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I mean, just it's a different list. That's why we do these blind rankings. It keeps you guessing. All right. So, at least for the podcast, that caps off 2024-25. Gentlemen, excellent work as always. I because I'm a insane person, I added up I keep track of all the games I cover. I have for a long time. And I added up all the mileage and the different sports I done and the other day. And when you put it down on paper, it seems like a lot. And I know you guys were similar numbers to me in both in terms of events covered and whatnot. So from me to you, and I think I speak for our listenership and those who read the newspaper, thank you for the time and the effort you put into treating our schools and our teams with the coverage that they deserve. I hope that people on the North Shore and Cape Ann realize how much we give of ourselves to cover these teams and present them in the ways we do. With let's face it, it's the three of us. It's kind of limited in terms of staff, but we do the best that we can, and we try to treat it professionally and give people something to look forward to every day when they read the paper or click online or listen to one of our podcasts or whatnot. So thank you for all that you do and for your love and the care you put into covering the teams and the schools that you do, gentlemen. Appreciate it. We will talk and we'll have another podcast in a couple weeks. Enjoy your summer until then. For Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, I'm Phil Stacy. Thanks for listening and have a great summer.